You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 271. This is our Resistance wrap-up episode where we'll be talking about the final episodes of Season 1, including the two-part finale, No Escape. And joining me tonight is none other than the Colossus himself, also known as Blowfish 1. Please give a warm welcome to Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Blowfish 2. How are you?
Doing good, too. If you've not seen the episodes, then you have no idea why we're calling each other Blowfish. They're not terms of endearment, justice. So, but yeah, doing real well. I'm a little tired. There's been a lot of news, a lot of stuff going on with Celebration. I can't even wrap my head around how much information we're getting with all this stuff. So
they've opened the fire hose.
Exactly. Yeah. And I am leaning on you to make all this clear. So with that, let's segue into the news, and we'll start with Celebration, and let's talk about some maybe house stuff that we've got going on. So if you've hopefully you're subscribed to this podcast and you've subbed to it, you've already seen that we've had two specials now come out, the Road Celebration shows. And the first one had the privilege and honor to interview Mike, our producer, editor, what is he, CEO, or what's his title here?
Lord Emperor.
Emperor.
He likes to call himself a variety of things these days.
He's got all these stupid names. Yeah. But no, seriously, that was a lot of fun to do his interview. And then you had a chance to interview Josh and Joe.
Joe and James, or Crowley from Bad Gamers and Simply Stogies. Yeah, I had them on.
My apologies. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they've been with us forever. And so it was great to have them on the air finally. It was a lot of fun.
So those are good. And we've got, I think we've got at least one more in the can on your way, and probably one more after that. So you may get a total of 4 of these little bonus episodes leading up to Celebration. It's just our way to kind of get you more enticed if you're not already with everything that's going on. And so look forward to those here very soon. A quick update on the activities. If you've not been following, again, we will be at Celebration. We'll have a show on Saturday. And then we've got some off Celebration. I almost said off Broadway, but that's not what we're doing here.
Kind of the same caliber.
I guess maybe not off Broadway shows. We've got some events that we've got planned here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday morning we're doing an event as well. So if you'd like to know more about where we will be and how to partake in that, you can head over to eargluemedia.com/SWCC. And Jonesy's hard at work at making sure that that's all up to date, and you guys can have the latest information on dates and times and locations and all that.
Yeah, we're probably going to regret that slate with as crazy it is in the long days, but it's going to be lots of great memories, I think.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's get to the Star Wars Celebration news, and this is where we're recording this on Friday. This is the 22nd, and we finally got the full panel schedule. Has been released for all 5 days of Celebration, and there is a ton of stuff that's going on. I don't know. So I don't know where you want to start with this. I mean, we could spend a whole show doing this, and I don't want to do that. But let's at least focus on the Celebration stage. There's some new stuff in here. We got more confirmation on some of the old stuff. But I guess looking at this list of everything on Celebration stage, is this pretty much must-see TV for you?
Yeah, I think so. Most of these days, I think are going to be the popular ones, as evidenced by the lottery system we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But yeah, I was a little surprised that Clone Wars didn't get a top billing, like an 11 o'clock show.
Yeah, and I thought, is that on the other stage as well? It's not on the Celebration stage?
It's on the Celebration stage, but it's like at 3:30 in the afternoon, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. It's not everything is stacked together, but I was a little surprised it didn't get a top bill, given that we know we're going to get a sneak peek.
Yeah, and if you've not heard, Friday, so Thursday, nothing's going on. That's just, everybody.
Yeah, preview night.
Yeah, figuring out what the heck they're going to do. And then Friday morning, we hit it right off the bat. We've been talking about this. We've alluded to it. I think it wasn't a huge surprise to anyone, but 11 a.m. will be the Star Wars Episode 9, still no title panel. And I think that's going to be hitting the other two stages as well. I think they're going to simultaneously cast that as well.
Yep.
We got Vader Immortal, which is a new VR series right after that. Creatures, Droids, and Star Wars Aliens, that thing.
Yeah, Galaxy's Edge, which I'm bummed I'm going to miss.
So, and this is where so we knew. So again, we'll be on stage Saturday at 11 on the podcaster stage, and we didn't know until I think today. Was that right? Today it finally got announced.
Yeah, a couple of these times came out a couple of days ago, but
yeah, I couldn't remember if this one had been announced just a little bit earlier or not. Either way, we will be up against the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge stage. So, or show.
This is one that's disappointing, but again, if Clone Wars would have been at 11, we would have missed Clone Wars.
Well, I don't. Yeah, you say that, but I probably would have went to Clone Wars.
Well, yeah, great. If you're flying solo,
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so if I have to trade something, I guess I would definitely trade Clone Wars and miss out on Galaxy's Edge. I'm really curious. I'm curious how busy this is going to be for an 11 o'clock show, given that it's a Disney park thing. So I'm really curious to see if how busy that really is. So
yeah, I don't know.
That's an interesting one.
It'll probably be busier than our show. Let's just leave it at that.
It might be on par. Legions.
Yeah.
Legions.
They have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is that same day at 1:30. That looks pretty good. I'm pretty excited. I'm just being a fan of Respawn. So
yeah,
we'll see how that one goes. And then this was
Sisters of the Force. Yeah, that was not surprising to see it, but it was cool to see that one 4 o'clock on Saturday as well.
Yeah, and they've got Ashley Eckstein, Vanessa Marshall, Catherine Tabor. I mean, Amy Ratcliffe. There's just a ton of them going on. So a ton of them there. So that should be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Of course, Sunday. Mandalorian. All right. Jon Favreau and Filoni.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I can't wait. And that is going to be on both of the other two stages in the Galaxy and Twin Suns stages as well. So pretty good shot.
All these, sorry to interrupt. All these 11 o'clock first shows, these morning shows, while they're on Celebration stage, they will be simulcast both on the Galaxy and the Twin Sun stage. So you will have an opportunity, even if you're not able to get into the primary panel, you will be able to see them in 2 other viewing rooms. So that's a good thing. So we've got lots of seats, so a lot more opportunity to get in there and see them.
And then Sunday they close out with Star Wars Clone Wars sneak peek. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that one. Monday morning, 11 a.m. Phantom Menace's 20th anniversary celebration. Really looking forward to that one. And then they get into got a Warwick Davis one in here.
Short stories, really.
Yeah, I see what they did there.
Yeah.
And then we get the closing ceremony at 3:30, and that's the celebration stage, right? We're not going to go into the other ones. If you guys want, maybe we'll throw the link in the show notes. If not, you've probably already seen all this already. But there are a lot
of other cool events going on though across the board. And like Albert said earlier, man, this thing is just jam packed across the board. So there is something for everybody in a variety of different spaces. So even if you don't want to go to the main stage stuff, there are other things going on during the 11 o'clock panels that you can go do. And so if it's not your cup of tea, then you got something else to go look for or sleep in a little bit.
Yeah.
But lots of great stuff all throughout the weekend and even all the way into the evenings. I think they haven't announced everything. I think they're still going to do some movie viewings and things like that at night, I believe is what they've done in celebrations past. And I think they've said that they're going to do this again. And there's other things to do if you don't want to come out and hang out with us.
Yep, and they're saving the SWTOR announcement for last. So
oh my goodness, yeah. Can we talk about no SWTOR panel itself? So that was a little surprising. Not really.
Well, they're just saving it, right? They don't want to
That is true.
They're pacing themselves. That's what they're doing.
All right. Yeah, we'll have the links. Go check out the whole panels and
all right,
make a schedule.
Yeah, for the next 30 minutes now, we are going to try to explain the lottery system. So, and we were talking about this even, I messaged Jonesy earlier and I was like, can you please just do this? Because I have not had a chance to look at it. I've very loosely looked at it and was like, what is happening here? But my understanding, again, this is my first celebration, but apparently they took a lot of the feedback from the last celebration and came up with a new way for people to attend these different shows rather than just standing and harshing the cold environment and waiting or warm environment, waiting to get in and stand in line, that kind of thing. So what it's called Lightspeed, but what exactly is this lottery system that they've concocted here and how does it work?
Well, I think the objective of it briefly is to eliminate lines or dramatically reduce the need to stand in line. There's a lot of people that are bummed out about this. They enjoy the camaraderie and the interaction with other fans, a lot of memories and potentially lifelong friends they've had from these other events. But let's also be clear and honest. This isn't always the most safe thing to do. It's not always the most healthy thing to do. And it makes it a really difficult day as you go on. So I think overall, we should view this as a positive system. So on the specifics of it, though, it's called Lightspeed. It's an advanced panel reservation lottery system. Mm-hmm. This is for the 11 o'clock a.m. panels. So specifically, none of this applies if you are a Jedi Master VIP. You're a Jedi Master. You don't have to worry about the rest of us that are not Jedi Masters. We're the Anakins. You are the everybody but Anakins. So now the nuts and bolts of it, this applies to the Celebration stage, Galaxy, and the Twin Sun stages. And that's important to note, especially for these really popular events. You can enter multiple lotteries at the same time. And like we said, this is important for like episode 9 because all 3 of these stages are going to be used to show the panel and presumably show any kind of material they're going to show us. If you win the lottery, you're entitled to reserve your space, and you can also reserve spaces for any other badges that were a part of your original order. So if you ordered 4 passes for your family and it was all in the same order, you would be able to reserve spaces for each of the 4 people in your party. So Albert and I would not be able to do this for one another. And if you're familiar with Disney, you can link your vacation accounts or your fast passes or your reservations, and you can do a lot of things together. You cannot do that in this. I think that's one of the things that's rubbing some folks the wrong way, because the people they're going with, obviously, we didn't all spend thousands of dollars in one bulk thing. We all bought our own $200 tickets.
Yeah. Okay.
If you don't claim your spot, then it goes into the non-lottery advanced panel, which is the mobile app, the website, and the kiosks at the event later on. The lotteries open on Thursday, March 28th. They close before midnight Central Time on Wednesday, April 3rd. The reservations must be claimed by the 5th of April. And the key thing is there is no priority given to those who register early. So if you register on the 28th, your odds are the same as if you registered on the 2nd.
Right.
I would still recommend you do this early, because why not? Don't sit on it. Don't forget about it. Don't complain if you miss the deadline or if website crashes on the last day. Get it in there early so you don't have anything to worry about. The panel reservations, they can only be if you get one and you reserve your spot, you can only redeem them once at the event, meaning that there is no re-entry. So this is how they're helping protect to make sure there's not too many people going in. So if you go in, you have to stay. If you leave, you will not be able to come back into the event.
So pee before you go.
But yeah. Make sure you've used the bathroom, you are prepped, and you are fed and everything.
Yeah.
Don't risk it. If you enter multiple times on your email address, it will void your entries. So please don't try to scam the system. Okay. So that's the paneling system, or that's the specific ones for the celebration stage primarily. There's some for exhibitors, which are going to be through the mobile app and the Celebration website. Real quick, this is for the exclusive merch items. So Funko, Hasbro, and Lego are going to announce stuff they announced it yesterday, actually. It dropped on the 21st. That lottery opens on Tuesday, the 26th, and it closes on Tuesday, April 2nd. I believe those dates are correct. So again, it sounds like the app is coming either late this weekend or early next week. So when this show drops, the app is probably going to be available. Is going to be my guess. The last bit of queuing here is the Lightspeed, goodness gracious, Lightspeed lane virtual queuing.
Oh my goodness.
So this is your ability.
Here?
Yeah. So this means that you can reserve your spot at the merchandise store. So while you're out doing other things, you can reserve a spot and they call your number up, and you can go to I believe a unique entrance, a special entrance, and you would be able to do your shopping at a reserved time. Again, this is crowd management. It's just trying to help people make best use of their time and also help them be able to serve people in a reasonable way. And the last thing about all this stuff is, to do any of this, you have to have a valid and activated badge. The 2 important things, right? So you have to have a valid badge that's not fake, none of that good stuff. And also you have taken the time to go and activate it. So as the badges have been rolling out this week, we've had I think you've got yours, I've got mine. Not everybody has them yet. Be patient. They're coming. You'll have an activation, little step-by-step process on there to go to the website, answer a couple questions, punch in your information, and your badge is active. So it's just their way of trying to reduce the number of fake badges and things like that.
Yeah.
So that is it in a nutshell.
Wow.
And that is still a nutshell, believe it or not, even though it took 5 minutes.
Well, thanks, guys. We'll be back with the next episode. No, I'm kidding.
We need to rest now.
Yeah, after all of that. Okay, so long and short of it, right? There's a time frame where I'm going to be able to go register for these shows and get my name into the lottery, but I will know by April 5th where I'm going to be, right? Whether or not I got into any of these lotteries. Is that true?
Yes, and that's the great thing.
That's cool.
You're going to know what your plans are, and you can decide what else you're going to do if you don't get into them and how you're going to do it. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think that's overall still a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess good luck to everybody with that. And I'm going to throw my name in there. I think we're all going to do the same thing just to see if we can, see what we get. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what to expect. This seems all reasonable to me, and only because I'm coming in with a blank slate. I have no baggage here. I have no idea how this thing worked or how, what went well or what didn't last time. So it seems like it's a good system, but yeah, I know there's a lot of people that are really upset about it. So
I'm always willing to, when I see people putting an effort in, they're trying to do something, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. And, next time, hopefully it'll be better. And
yeah. All right.
It will be positive. All right, let's get the last piece of celebration news then.
Yeah. Hayden Christensen. Yeah, the chosen one is here. He will be at Celebration.
It's exciting.
Pretty excited. Yeah. I mean, I don't know when was the last time he's done this?
Was it?
Has he ever?
Last Celebration?
No, I have no idea.
I'm trying to remember which one he went to that he got the huge applause
ovation. Yeah. I don't remember which one it was too. The minute you said that, I remembered that he did get one. But either way, this seems just so appropriate, right? Since we're talking about 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace, and there's a lot of interest right now in the prequels, that kind of thing. So I think it's good. I can't wait to see him, and hopefully get to see him on some of the other stages, because we didn't even mention that. Some of the other stages are going to have some, quote, special guests, like the video game one. There's one where they're going to bring out special guests, and they're going to talk about their favorite video games and play them and stuff. So I'm thinking Boyega's going to be there. Some of the other avid gamers that are Star Wars actors.
Well, you saw the kind of games they're going to play, right?
Yeah. Classics is what they said.
Yeah.
Super Star Wars.
Yeah. Right up your alley, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. They're pulling at my heartstrings. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see him in some of these other panel or other stages as well. But it'd be good just to see him let loose and have fun and know that, he's made a huge contribution to this.
Speaking of classic Star Wars video games, a quick plug for our friends over at Bad Gamers Anonymous. They are doing they're kind of mirroring our Road to Celebration on their primary show, and they are they're playing and reviewing and sometimes subjecting themselves to some classic Star Wars games like Bounty Hunter and a couple others that for the next I think 4 episodes, something like that.
No, that's
so
cool.
if you want to go and hear their experiences and how these games hold up, I think they played Jedi Academy, which I always really enjoyed as well. So if you want to hear that. Newsflash is not always a positive take on it, but I think it's fun to kind of hear a retrospect on some of these things that are 15, 20 years old.
Cool. Yeah, I've hadn't had a chance to listen to the Bounty Hunter episode, but I definitely will get around to that.
Oh, that game was a hot mess.
Yeah.
Even back then it was a hot mess.
Back then it was. Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the news. I know that probably went a little bit longer, but again, there's just so much going on. And we definitely want to try to cover it and give our input and try to explain it as best we can. So let's move into our main show. So we've got 4 episodes that we're going to talk about. Again, this will be The Disappeared, Descent, and then No Escape, which is a 2-parter that just aired. I guess it was this past week?
Yeah, just aired on Sunday. Yeah.
So let's jump into the first one, Disappeared. And this one was really about the First Order's presence just kind of, becoming larger on the Colossus. It was starting to grow. A lot of the citizens found themselves on notice. And then it kind of ends with this mysterious disappearance of Hype, Phazon, and Aunt Z. But I guess, and we were talking about this before we came on the air, all of these episodes are really good. They almost feel like these 4 especially feel very, very connected. It almost felt like you're kind of watching one big episode, like a 2-hour episode. The first 2, I would say, the Disappeared and Descent, there are some pieces in there that were interesting and certainly had some significant play later on in the finale. But there wasn't a whole lot here, I guess. Is that fair? I mean, that's not critiquing. I'm not saying they were bad episodes. they were good episodes, but it just felt like there wasn't a whole lot specifically called out in each one. I guess because it plays into the larger narrative of all 4 of these together.
I think that's a great way to put it. Where the other episodes seem a bit more contained. They had some connected tissue to the other episodes. These very much tied into one another and created a bit more of a seamless story as you went through. I mean, it's still episodic television to an extent, but it did a much better job. And you're right, they were enjoyable, but it was really difficult to pinpoint any particular thing about them that really struck you as enjoyable. And I've kind of been lukewarm on the show so far, but we really saw it maturing and it started to grow up a bit in the stories that we were potentially hoping for. And I think we saw this a bit with Rebels too. As Rebels got further into that first season, it really started to take a different shape. And it felt a little more Star Warsy at times. And I think these episodes really started to feel, and I think some of that may have just been the presence of stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I mean, at its core, I mean, having stormtroopers and having a little more action, a little more, and quite honestly, we had a lot more depth between some of the characters with Tam and Yeager, and we saw Kaz's development, and bringing in some of the other characters like Hype and Aunt Z, like you said, to where we start to get a better idea of who they are and what they believe in and how they fit into the larger story. That's what I thought. Overall, this really started to do it, and the Disappeared really started laying the groundwork for that, I thought, across these 4.
Yeah. I would agree. I think some of the better moments, or I guess the more standout moments from the Disappeared, I have to say it's a lot of it is you start to get Tam's suspicions, right? Where she's real suspicious of where Kaz has been. She makes a comment in there about, sometimes there needs to be sacrifices in order to maintain order and safety. This is all alluding to, and we probably should have said this, but we're going to spoil this, so get ready for it. But this all starts to allude, and so it alludes to what's going to happen here ultimately at the very end of this season with her. But they kind of laid some of that groundwork earlier on, and I think we talked about it. I think we were speculating at one point in the last episode that we did with Resistance about whether or not Tam was so sympathetic for the First Order that she could potentially be somebody that would defect to the First Order. And sure enough, that does play out a little bit later. But we were seeing bits and pieces of it here where she kept hitting on this episode and the next episode where she felt more safe and secure with the order that was presented around her. And that's a huge pivotal moment a pivotal thing for her, because when she finds out that Yeager and Kaz have betrayed her and they're not stable, that was enough to kind of sway her opinion to kind of, to leave and join the First Order at that point. So all of that was laid down in here. And there, again, there's just little bits and pieces of it, but I think that was probably the bigger part here. We had a moment in here also where Hype and Aunt Z had disappeared. And I think what they were trying to and I mean, they didn't really put it in your face. It was kind of under the covers, but the First Order are really eliminating anyone that they feel is a threat to them, right? Or a threat to what they're trying to do there. With Aunt Z, the First Order comes in and they're trying to put up their propaganda, now recruiting type signs in her bar. She makes some comments verbally, a little bit more outspoken about it. In fact, I think at one point she says, "I don't even care if they can hear me," kind of thing. And then, she's on the list and they make her disappear. Faison was kind of speaking up and speaking out against them, and suddenly he disappeared. They lock both of those guys up. And at the very end, they get away and they make a note or make a comment about they were going to Takodana, that she's got a friend there. Well, yeah, right. We all know who that is, I guess. Did you have any moment where you thought there is a very real chance that Maz is going to show up? She's not going to be in this. No. But when you saw that though, did you have that moment? Like, no way. Yeah. Are they really going to bring her in at some point? It was the oh crap moment. I think that's what I said. Not no way. It was oh crap. She's coming. Yeah. Your kids listen to the show. I didn't want to say that. Yeah, no, it's not what that's what I said, but that's not what went through my mind. I mean, and it's fine. I mean, I like that. I as much as I give Maz a bunch of junk about, how much I don't like her, but I think it makes sense. I mean, it's another way just to connect it all together, which is fine. And they didn't really, it wasn't, this wasn't a focal point, right? She just makes a comment, they take off, and then we don't see them again. We don't see them again until the very, very end in the finale in part 2 of No Escape. So I like the way they did that, right? I don't think we had to see her. We all knew what she was talking about when she said she had a friend out in Takodana.
And I got the impression that this really felt like a turning point episode for Kaz as well. That we saw the moments that were going to start shaping him for these last 3 episodes after this one.
Yeah.
And the moments that we were expecting him to grow up and to take ownership and accountability and responsibility and really identify his beliefs. He still has his moments, right? But when he decided to go and mount a rescue, it was very much the hero developing that I think we expected to start seeing. And I think next episode in Descent, we really started to see that from him as well. But I thought this was a really pivotal one for Kaz in particular, to where we start to see the hero start to develop out of him and really start to come out a little bit. And some of the childish, spoiled brat type of things that are just part of how he's grown up have started to finally, slough away a bit. And you're getting this more rounded character, I think, as he's experienced all these things throughout the season, as he's about to experience a whole lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in one of the other episodes, I think we made a comment that as soon as the events of The Force Awakens occur, and we weren't sure when that was going to be in this timeline exactly, whether it would be at the end of the season or mid-season or whatever, we knew at some point these two paths were going to cross, right? But I think we made the comment that was going to be kind of an awakening for everybody, that this show may get a little bit more serious, not to the extent of maybe like Rebels or Clone Wars, but definitely in these characters, you would expect them to go through some level of growth and maturity, just because of the reality of the war. And we'll get to it in a second, but I mean, this couldn't hit Kaz any harder than it did, right, given what happened. So yeah, I would agree that this was a big turning point for him. And ultimately, this particular episode ends with them all being under arrest. So Kaz, Yeager, who else was in there?
Neeku,
yeah. Right?
Yeah, Bucket.
Yeah, poor Bucket. So that's how it ends. They're under arrest, and
This was a really good cliffhanger too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought, even for a weekly episode, this was a really cool way to end it. So I really enjoyed that.
So that takes us into Descent, and Descent kind of just picks up right at that moment. You come to find out that they spotted the fireball. They were able to trace that back and realize that it was in that sector from Alpha Sigma. I forget the name of the episode now.
Right. And in the last episode, Tam was questioning Kaz because she saw carbon scoring, which is usually a sign of battle.
Yeah.
And he was explaining it got a little too hot on reentry, and that kind of thing. But now you start to see she doesn't want to put the pieces together, but you're starting to see that some of the pieces are starting to fall into place, especially once Tierney shows up.
And it's right at that moment that Tam is, she's, I guess, Bucket comes in, does a smoke screen, and it's a mass. They start running, and this really, disrupts Tam quite a bit. She's saying this isn't right. This is all a misunderstanding. She's freaking out and she's hesitant, right? She gets surrounded by Pyre while everybody else escapes. They're calling for her, and she's really doubting whether or not, what is happening here. What's the right path? Do I go with them? Do I stay here? This doesn't make any sense.
Very surreal moment for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And she decides to turn herself over to Pyre and the First Order. And that's where Tierney comes in. So, and then we get the moment where Kaz finally has his big reveal to Neeku that he's a resistance spy. And in true Neeku form, he doesn't believe him. Right? He's joking about it. That's not a funny joke. We shouldn't be doing that kind of thing.
Oh man, Neeku is great in these episodes.
Yeah, he has really done good.
I really like that character. I can't help it. I love it.
Yeah. And then with Agent Tierney, what do you think of her character? I mean,
She was slick, man. She was really, really slick. At first, she really looks a lot like Iden Versio. I mean,
yeah, I got that sense too.
Yeah, even a bit of the same kind of voice inflection. But yeah, she's super slick. She's really cunning, and she knows how to play on Tam's insecurities. And she definitely is seeing the open wound of what's been going on over the last, presumably weeks or months or however long Kaz has been out on the platform. And being able to exploit that is a specialist type of thing, right? And clearly Pyre and them were just going to do brute force on everything, but she is much more cunning with that in that regard and able to show her, hey, these are the finer things. And she takes her up to this, the cafe on the in the tower, right, where the aces eat, and she hasn't eaten this well in forever. And, just starts to play her up, your hopes and dreams, they're crushing you here, and all with the intent of pulling data out of her. Now, she doesn't really know much though, but she knows a little bit more than she probably realizes, because when they start asking about Poe Dameron, clearly she has seen Poe and she knew who that was. And then when she puts the pieces together, she's again back in this disbelief type of mode of this doesn't make any sense. And the interesting thing about Tam at this point is that she's really defending Kaz and Yeager.
Yeah.
And I think some of it because I don't think she believes that Kaz is capable of doing any of these things, because he's this kind of screw up half the time, right? And doesn't really have any skill set. Yeah, he's getting a little bit better, but you can still see there's a friendship there, and there was something worth saving. And this made it a little more difficult to when they had the confrontations between them a little later on in the subsequent episodes. It made it a little more difficult to reconcile that and understand how can you go from defending them in friendship, but whenever you're confronted with that person, all these raw emotions will end up coming out. But anyway, back, just the questioning aspect of it and the exposing of Kaz, really opened her eyes. And again, the pieces finally fell into place, and she had to stop lying to herself.
Yeah. The one interesting thing about her, and going back to Tierney, her character, I think she's great. She's very calm. She's very collected. She doesn't fit the mold of like a Hux, right? Who's yelling and screaming and over the top kind of thing. Right. She's completely different in that aspect. But one of
pretty much like Tarkin a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great example, right? Very, very cool and collected. And it sounds like, they know more than what they're leading on to. The thing about here with her relationship though with Tam, and I may be looking at this too heavily, but there's a line later on in No Escape Part 2 where she tells Yeager, "I trusted you. I was expecting a better life. You were like a father to me," right? We don't know anything about Tam's really her background in terms of her mother and father, but if you take that at face value, she's looking at him as a father figure. The way that Tierney was presenting herself here, it was almost like she was trying to be a nurturing mother for her. And
yeah,
so,
very much.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got this dynamic where she's come in and she's kind of trying to almost fill this void that she's starting to develop because of what Yeager has done, and really that distrust that's crept in. And, it was just like, it just felt like there was like a mother father kind of pulling at the kid kind of thing going on. So again, it may be too a little heavy handed for me, but
no, I think that's actually really, really astute. I think that's probably pretty close to what she realized she needs. And again, that just goes back to, she understands how interrogations work and what's the appropriate tool for the task.
Yeah.
And it's not always the blunt force method of just beating it out of you. This way can be just as effective. And maybe it takes a little extra patience, but you can get exactly what you need. And then, what then you start saying, is this someone I can recruit? And then start asking those types of questions. And we'll find out maybe some of the answers to those here in a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And this is also the episode where the Colossus suddenly becomes a character again. And I guess it has been, right? It has been a character on and off throughout this season, but definitely
less so, yeah.
in this episode, and especially the finale. But we learned that the Colossus can go up and down. They lower the ship into the water in order to get to the tower, or I guess the tower, because Kaz has this plan that he's going to go ahead and contact the Resistance, and he's got, he makes mention that he's got his whole family, and his dad's a senator, and he's got all these connections, and he's going to call the Resistance over here to save the world, right? Save everybody. But going back to the Colossus, we learned that it was kind of able to drop down into the water, and they kind of flood it, I guess, or submerge it underwater, I should say, right, in order for him to kind of get to the top, to get to that tower as well. But more on the Colossus here. Is this the episode where they make mention about next one, sorry. I was thinking about the hyperdrive.
Yeah, next episode.
Next episode. All right. Well, let's get back to Tierney and Tam, because that was where she tells her that Tierney tells Tam that this, what the First Order is all about is really galactic peace through absolute order, nothing more. And this plays right into Tam's trust issues. Again, they keep hitting on this thing about the First Order is really about order. It's about structure. It's about having, security. And these are all things that we heard Tam saying, right? When everybody else is saying, look, the First Order's here and they're everywhere and we can't do anything. And she's like, well, no, they're actually helping us and they're defending us. So she's playing right into all of this, and you can see it in her eyes. They do a really good job with the character animation eyes a lot of times in the show too. I know that, I'm not trying to be dramatic about it, but you can definitely see where she's looking around and she's trying to starting to put all this together and piece it all together on her own. And she's almost playing right into that narrative that Tyranny is trying to put together for her.
Right. And you have to figure that Tyranny was able to pull some sort of data on her previously because they knew who she was going into it. And they had things on Kaz. Presumably they had Yeager and the others as well. So it would make sense if they had a little bit of her backstory to understand beyond just the interactions with her. And they probably pick up on some of that pretty quick. And maybe some of what they had overheard in the bar or, any of the listening devices they've got. I guess you could presume they've got something tapped, but you could figure they probably did a little bit of research to understand her familial past and what she might have been looking for here on the Colossus.
Yeah. Just quickly, there was a moment in here where CB23 and Doza had a conversation.
Oh, jeez.
You put, this is your note, I think. Is it total Lassie moment? Because I had the same thing in my notes. And
it's a total Lassie moment. What's that, CB23? We need to do this? Oh, yeah. Kaz is over here. Oh, yeah. It was just total Lassie moment where you have to repeat everything because you can't understand the other character at all.
Right. Yeah.
This is one of the things that we didn't have to do with Chewbacca. Right. This is kind of the interesting thing. And yet in this one, we're having to do a lot because the droid is doing all of the speaking.
Yeah. And then I thought they were going to do, and then once he comes back, CB23 comes back to talk to Kaz. And I thought we were going to get the whole same thing again, but instead that, he throws up a little hologram of Doza talking. So we didn't, but anyways, it was a cool little moment. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw it as well.
One interesting thing about Kaz real quick is in this episode in particular, he was the only one that kept coming back to, we need to rescue Tam. We need to take care of her. And Yeager, we saw very much go into active duty mode. Mm-hmm. There's a mission. We have to do these things in order to prolong our not only survival, but also establish what our next plan is. And it's not a lack of caring for Tam, but it's one of these factors of understanding what you need to do right now in this moment and not acting on impulse and not acting with emotion. But I thought it was, again, from Kaz's character, I thought this was really nice to see that we still see him caring. And again, he brought her up over and over and over, even when it seemed like no one was listening. And I thought that was really good about showing us how much he really does care about the people around him. And I think about people in general, and true to his heart on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I didn't even catch that, honestly. But yeah, you're right. He was consistently going back for her and thinking about her at all times. There was a quick moment in too that we learned something about Kaz being wealthy. I think we kind of assumed that if his father was a senator and all that, but was definitely a confirmation that he came from wealth here. And then, so they make their way up to the tower. They're in the midst of trying to get that set up. And we get a really cool moment here where Yeager sacrifices himself in order to save Kaz so that Kaz can get away, gets himself locked up.
He's still alive if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, right.
He surrendered and basically created a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, I should say I shouldn't say sacrifices him. That was probably not the right word to say. He sacrificed his liberty. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah, he turned himself. Yeah. And then it ends. We get a cool message here from Leia, which I was not expecting. I should have, but I think I was just too caught up in the episode that it didn't dawn on me that probably would happen. But really, it's Leia talking to Kaz and basically says, because he finally makes contact with the Resistance and says, "Hey, we need help on the base." And she pretty much tells him, "Hey, dude, sorry, there are a lot of people out here that need help. We're real busy right now, but trust us. We trust you that you'll get through all this." But she does give them the coordinates to their new base, where they're going to set up their new Resistance base. So she doesn't exactly say in this episode, but we come to find out later that it's Dakar, that where that's going to be.
Yeah, it really started to cement where exactly in the timeline. I mean, the next episode is going to firmly cement that. but it really started to give you a really clear picture of where we're at on the timeline and what we're about to go through, and kind of get you excited about, are we going to see certain things, or are we not going to see them, or how are they going to portray them for our characters?
Now, it ends with a really cool line of, "We are the resistance now, all of us."
Yep.
Just kind of putting that little stake in the ground there about they're finally all of them referring to themselves as resistance at this point.
Yeah, and it came out of Kaz. I mean, and again, they're on their own, but they're not alone. And then Leia had those messages too. She's like, the resistance it might be scattered, it might be, you have pockets here, but there's always someone around to help. And you just got to be willing to do the right thing and to find that help. And he really took that flag, even though he was a little bit discouraged they weren't coming, and the others around him were very much so. He took that to heart, and this is effectively his home now, what he's made of it, at least.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing, though, and we had the pirates come back into play, right? So they were able to intercept an encrypted message, which, okay, I'm sorry, a secured message, not encrypted, but I said secured. And so they were able to see the note from back and forth to Leia. I think they got Kaz's message. Right. So Sonara, of course, perked up, but we didn't get any context beyond that. But the pirates are now in the loop as to that there's something going on in the Colossus.
Yeah, and they'll factor in here in just a little bit in part 2. So foreshadowing again. So No Escape Part 1. This opens up with a kind of a cool it opens up with the Blowfish 1 to Blowfish 2. So that's that joke that we were talking about earlier. But it opens up with Doza and Pyre, and they're really like, this is super passive aggressive stuff. You can tell they've just about had enough of each other at this point. And I think Doza finally gets pushed to the limit. They place him under arrest, and he lets loose 4D, which I thought was kind of cool because we got hints of that earlier on. I don't remember what episode, when he was training with her, or somebody was training with 4D. I forget who it was now. But yeah, this droid went, bananas.
Ballistic.
And started knocking
literally
around.
Ballistics. He pulled out the shoulder weapons and wrecking shop with the troopers. Unfortunately, they took her out.
Yeah,
but she was pretty cool though. It was pretty effective. But yeah, it was what was the command that he gave her though? It was like 4D
stop them. It was like
stop them. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was kind of cool. But yeah, finally Doza finally hit his breaking point. He got tired of reminding them how much he was in charge, even though he wasn't. So I think he decided to show him. Ultimately, it didn't get him very far. It got him thrown in the brig.
So now he's arrested. Yeager's arrested. Kaz.
Things are looking up.
Yeah, right. It's getting better. Kaz's great plan now is, I think he wants to steal a shuttle. He wants to head over to Hazian Prime, get reinforcements, come back, and then save everybody on the Colossus. That's kind of what he's been trying to do. Right. Probably a little bit naive. But that's really what he's doing here. And I guess the next scene, and it cuts back over to Tam and Tyrion, and they're still kind of going back and forth. And this is where she tells him that, hey, they used you. I think she even challenges Tam by saying, do you really think Yeager truly cares about you? So just more of that, baiting her and leading her on, trying to really get her to convert her. And the whole purpose of this is, I mean, at the end of it, we get the sense that maybe they want to recruit her in some way. She alludes to that, you've always wanted to be a pilot, and this is going to, the First Order can provide that kind of thing. But you got to think that really at this, what really Tyranny's trying to do here is get as much information on Kaz, on Yeager, on Poe Dameron, where the Resistance is doing, right? She thinks that somehow Tam's got some of this information. I think she comes to find out pretty quickly through the course of the conversation in this scene that Tam really doesn't know a whole lot. In fact, this is where you were saying that she's kind of dogging on Kaz as being a bumbling idiot. There's no way this guy could be a spy, kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of a dead end for her.
I was really hoping when she was talking about being a pilot, I was so hoping that Tyranny would say, we'll have you flying in no time. Just,
right.
Just because
as a callback.
Yeah, it would have been a great callback. It would have been a totally different mood to from this scene compared to what we had, of course, with the aftermath of that line from Solo.
Yeah, but
it would have been a really nice tie back to Solo in some way. And I had a nice chuckle anyway, because in my head canon now it's she said it under her breath.
I guess we at this point too, Niku and I think it's the twins, the kids.
Yeah, Kel and Ayla.
Yeah,
along with their Shellfolk friends.
Shellfolk friends. Yeah, they stumble onto like the main. I don't know what you want to call it. The control.
It's like main engineering. Yeah,
sure. And it's there that they come up with a plan. So they're trying to come up with a way to get rid of all these all the troopers off the Colossus. And there's a interesting. We got the scuba troopers, which I think, and I saw it was confirmed on Bucket's list. They did confirm it that they were a take on the scuba troopers, but it was kind of cool to finally see those guys.
I was trying to think if we had seen those in canon at all, like in Clone Wars or anything like that. But I was really happy to see them. The design was great. They were very much what I remember back from the EU. I think there was a toy. I think there was either a toy or a comic. My memory gets a little fuzzy here, but where we had seen scuba troopers in some sort of capacity on a page or on a card.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Bucket's List. They did talk about that. This was a callback to that, if not a direct descendant of them. But anyways, it was cool just to see another variation of the Stormtrooper, yet another variation of Stormtroopers. A little bit more modernized, right? More First Order looking.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but that was good.
Looked good, yeah. Still can't shoot.
Yeah, they still can't shoot, right? So they come up with this plan, and again, suspension of disbelief. But what the idea here is that they're going to flood these chambers, and then once they fill them up with water, then they'll flush them all out, and that'll flush out the troopers that are on the base. And it does work for the most part. But I guess more interesting here is while Niku and the kids are in that control room, he kind of looks up and he notices that there's a hyperdrive on the Colossus.
That was kind of a cool moment.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment. And it's very subtle. They don't dwell on it. He just goes, ooh, a hyperdrive. And then it cuts over to the next scene. I think it cuts over to Fix and Orca eating blue bacon or whatever. But yeah. So
they ruined the box.
You figure out, okay, this whole thing is really a ship and it can fly. And this is where the minute this happened, I literally screamed yes, because if you remember back in in the first episode that we did when we were covering the first half of season 1, one of my first impressions that I gave was I felt like this was going to be it felt very landlocked, right? If we never did anything but just stay on the Colossus, it seemed kind of boring, and there really wasn't a whole lot going on with this planet. And so, as I said, the comment I made was that it felt landlocked. It felt like at some point they're going to have to figure out a way to make the environments a little bit more dynamic, whether that's more missions outside in other planets or something else. But I think this definitely solves it because, cut to the very end here. Now they're in hyperspace and going somewhere they don't know. There's an endless sea of possibilities now in terms of what they could do and what kind of stories they could tell now that this thing is mobile and not just sitting in an ocean somewhere.
Right. And it really, we've talked about the Colossus being a character, and now it kind of truly is, because it's a mobile base and it has a variety of things. And we had seen some images of it from the Star Wars website. They did some releases and it said Colossus and it looked like a ship of sorts, but it really kind of looked like a Star Destroyer that was just sunk. And we were just seeing the back side of it, but really, no, this is nothing of the sorts. It is very much an upright ship, and it is very disorienting to look at. Like, how does this thing actually fly?
Yeah,
because it just doesn't seem. It's got thrusters in all the right places, but it doesn't really seem to. I don't know. It defies logic.
Yeah,
it's not a ship we've seen. At the very least.
Right. I think I know they had mentioned that this was supposed to be, it does fly upright and vertical. And they got a lot of it from the B-Wings, from the Resistance bombers. I think that's where they got some of the inspiration for it. I thought of Dryden Voss's ship as well, although it's not as wide, but that's another ship that just kind of came into mind, I think, when I saw this thing. But
yeah, and even the bombers from Last Jedi as well had a bit of a flavor of that.
Yep. But it's
nothing on this scale, though, man.
No, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. That is a First Order Star Destroyer that comes in, and the perspective's off a little bit. We can't tell exactly how far away it is. It's close enough that it can take fire upon it, but even still, you got to think, just from what you're able to kind of see, it does look like it's pretty up there in terms of size.
Right.
In fact, the pirate ship, right, that big ship that they've got, I forget what it's called now. Galleon?
Yeah, the Galleon. There you
go. Right. docks, and it's dwarfed by the Colossus. So it's pretty massive in terms of size. I would say.
Right.
I lost my place where we are.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Blue Bacon.
You had to go back to it. Huh?
Well, I like those characters. Like Bobby Moynihan or was it Monty? I forget.
Yeah, Bobby Moynihan.
Yeah. I think he does a great voice. Like, I love the character's voice that he does for him.
I was hoping that they'd be a little more involved.
Yeah,
but
true. I would agree.
At least we know they're still around.
They're still around. They packed themselves up and they were eating, hoping to get off the ship.
But let's talk about Yeager and Tam though, because we had a really nice moment.
Yeah, so Tam is on her way out. They're escorting her. So they're escorting her out. They want to get her off the ship, and they kind of almost have this Mexican standoff, right? Where they've got Yeager's down. Or let me start with Kaz, because Kaz and Tora are up at the top. Very similar to The Force Awakens when we had Finn and Poe. I'm sorry, Finn and Rey looking down on Solo. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
That
Solo
scene.
squared. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what they were going for or what, but they're on a railing looking down. Same thing we saw in The Force Awakens. But anyways, he calls down to him and basically saying, Tam, don't do this. They don't want her to go with the First Order. And then you have Yeager that comes around the side, and she's already had an exchange with Tam or with Kaz at this point, but it's a totally different conversation when she's with Yeager. And this is where we get the moment where, she's basically telling him, look, you're like a father to me. I can't believe that you did this kind of thing.
Yeah. And Scott Lawrence did such a great job in this space. Actually, his acting throughout these episodes was really, pretty solid. A couple of moments were a little off, but really, really good. And you really feel the weight finally of this relationship, and it's come to a head. And now she has the decision to make. Are you going to go with your family, or are you going to, turn your back on everything that you feel is now in question and is potentially a lie? And there's just too much doubt. And this is the really difficult decision that, we've seen many characters in Star Wars have to make over time. And they seem to make this choice more often than not, of course, because it's more interesting. But it was still, it's a difficult position to be in when the people you thought that cared for you and trusted you, and you trusted them. And, within a matter of a few months, everything is completely turned on its head. And you feel like you were just completely lost, and you're back to square one with these people of complete strangers that you're willing to take a chance at a better life elsewhere. And I don't even know if it's the promise of of order and security, or even of flying. It's just the outright hurt of the people you trusted most have turned out to be complete frauds.
Yeah, I think she says, you put me, Niku, and everyone in danger, is what she says to her. And I want to apologize. I got this a little mixed up. I think I jumped ahead.
We skipped a little bit of here, but
yeah, because this scene, no, this scene's really just that quick, in the hallway kind of thing, right? As they're passing or whatever, where he's yelling at her and she's yelling back at him. But it's not till later on that we get the scene where they have the big kind of standoff.
Right. That was in part 2.
Yeah, it's in part 2. So,
all right,
sorry about that. That's my fault.
That's all right. We missed where basically Tora and Kaz have to release Doza and Yeager as well. And we get epic team ups. Everybody's got a blaster.
Yep.
That'll happen in between, guys.
Yep. And this kind of brings us to the very end of the episode. It starts to get real eerie. It gets very quiet. I think you get Kaz, who actually makes a comment about it, like, "Hey, it's kind of quiet. Where's everybody at?" And then we get these two troopers walking by, and one of them says, "Hey, Starkiller Base is finally operational." And this cuts over, they kind of sneak up on what's going on, and you come to find out that we get to finally see Hux's speech from The Force Awakens.
You start hearing it very clearly before you see it.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you know exactly what was going on. Yeah.
And it's great because they did, I wouldn't have expected them to do anything less, but it was just refreshing to hear the actual audio track that was used in The Force Awakens, set to obviously some new animation. So these stormtroopers are kind of looking at this thing, or First Order troopers are looking at a hologram of Hux, and the big announcement that this was the day, and he goes into his whole speech and all that. But we get to finally see the Starkiller fire upon the Hosnian Prime system, destroying all 3 planets. And really, what we get to see is Kaz's reaction to it all. He almost immediately knows what planets these are, or what system this is, but he still checks with CB23 and asks her to confirm, like, hey, what system was that? And yeah, when he comes to find out, that's his home world, right? He says, Hosnian Prime, my parents, my home. And that's what ends this particular part 1, at least, of No Escape.
Right. And we see this weigh on him in several scenes, even when the action picks up and he kind of goes back to normal Kaz. And again, I'm bleeding into part 2 a little bit here too.
That's fine.
But even when the action picks up and you kind of see back to normal Kaz, at the same time, all of a sudden now you have these moments where when it's quiet, he just gets really solemn and sulks and just can't comprehend what's going on. And to his credit, I mean, Yeager, gives him some, tries to console him a bit. And I thought the interaction was really good. And we've really seen Kaz and Yeager's relationship really develop into something, I think, pretty special. And I think that's made things with Tam even more, all the more difficult now, because I think she's seen some of that closeness start to develop. But it was really nice to see him reach out. And I think this is a testament to both Christopher Sean and for Scott Lawrence. I think they did really fantastic job in these episodes, and these last couple in particular, of portraying both what needs to be done duty wise, but also the weight and the gravity of what we saw. And I don't know about you, but seeing Starkiller Base and the action of it all over again through Kaz's eyes, really, it really was a moment. It wasn't maybe as impactful as some of the ones we've seen in other spaces, but I think for this show, this was a really heavy, but a really satisfying moment to understand how Kaz would internalize and view this. I mean, this is all of his friends, his family, his mother, his father, presumably both, and just everything he knew is completely gone now from the First Order. Yeah,
I mean, he makes a comment about his parents, friends, the entire Galactic Senate is all suddenly gone.
Right.
And to be, I saw something online where someone was criticizing the fact that this didn't impact him as much as it should have. But I mean, the reality is you couldn't have a 30-minute episode where he's just sitting there, crying the whole time, right? I mean, that's not what we want. And I think Torra tries to do a good job of explaining, hey, I get it, but this is our only chance. We've got to get off this planet. That's more important right now. So I think you handled it well.
Well, and again, I think that they kept coming back and showing that it was still weighing on him, and he didn't. How many movies do we have where the character has a really pivotal moment in their character, usually some substantial loss, and then in about 5 minutes they're back on their mission like nothing ever happened, and they don't have any reaction, they don't have any thought to it, and you're back on track effectively with the character, maybe until the very last few scenes. At least with this, I think they did the right thing. They came back and they were like, okay, we're going to keep showing him that this is still weighing on his mind, even though we can't have him just sulking in a corner the entire time. He's still got to move forward. And I think, again, if the way they want to show that character and have him move forward, you can't let him sulk. You got to keep him busy. And I think that was a good balance. Keep him busy. Things are working out all right. When he's not busy, then his mind starts to drift back to it, and then you can show those moments. And I thought they really did strike a nice balance between those.
Yep, I would agree. Definitely did a good job of that. So at this point, they are getting ready to, I guess the new plan now is they're going to launch the Colossus, and this is where they get into kind of doing what they did earlier. They took this, Niku has this idea of doing what they did earlier with fleshing out the 2 stormtroopers, fleshing out all of them at this point. And this is interesting because at one point, things change here a little bit for the show. We haven't really seen anybody die yet, at least that I recall. I mean, we had one guy, I think one trooper fell off, or somebody fell off the Colossus, and that was kind of a funny moment, I guess, early on. But we had these stormtroopers were like getting flushed out into the water, and you saw them sinking because they had all their armor on. All right. So they're going to die. And then the next batch we had these 2 sharks that came by and picked them up and took them down. So it was a little bit more, I don't say grim, or gruesome, but definitely more, there was more weight here in that, no pun intended. There was more weight here in that things were changed. This was now no longer about stun. Everybody had their, guns on stun kind of thing. We started from this point on, everybody's trying to shoot each other to kill each other too. So But it was kind of weird to see them die like that.
Yeah, there were a couple stormtroopers that did get shot. I think Yeager shot them, but they're very quick cuts away. But it's clear that they did take a direct hit, and it wasn't a stun. But you're right. The shark scene in particular was a little bit. It was very prequel Star Wars. It was very Phantom Menace, which I thought was a nice potential, kind of callback thing. But yeah, it was a little more, gruesome, if you will, of where that's going to go. And of course, after a commercial break on one of them, you get the shark coming back across the scene with the helmet hanging out of its mouth.
Stuck in the tooth there somewhere.
Yeah, so clearly it had some good munchies that evening.
There's a quick moment where I believe it's Niku says there's an incoming transmission from Aunt Z, alluding to that they were on their way back. And so that was kind of nice that we were going to get to see them again. Excuse me. And this is where we finally get, Tyranny trying to take, Tam off. They basically said they're going to go off world, and Pyra says we're going to go ahead and call in reinforcements. And they start that. They're about to do all of that, I guess it's at that point. And this is where they finally get to the shuttle, right? And this is that whole scene where they're kind of going back and forth with that kind of Mexican standoff, and it ends with was it Kaz giving the order to Nico? He says, "Nico, you know what to do." And at that point, that's when Nico fires up the hyperdrive, or at least fires up the engines to get this thing up in flight. And this is the first time this thing has flown. They said in 20 years, which is interesting because it still worked. I was wondering if there was going to be like the Millennium Falcon thing, the sound it makes whenever it powers down doesn't do. But yeah, I mean, all went well. That was as soon as they started to lift off, everybody started to get out of there. You could see the shuttle moved out of the way. The TIE fighters got out of the way. So it was a pretty good plan, I guess, to at least get them those ships out of the way, anyways.
Right.
So yeah, at this point, Tam, we had a really great moment there again, where she is deciding back and forth. Yeager and Kaz are calling for her on one side. You've got what's her name, Tyranny, and the First Order are kind of Pyre waiting for her to join with them, and you're not really sure where she's going to go. And then finally, she kind of looks back and forth. Again, there's no dialogue here, so sorry if it's not as exciting, but there's no dialogue. It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes, and it's all in the shot. But you can definitely see that she is struggling with what decision to make, and ultimately she picks to join the First Order. So she jumps into the shuttle.
A lot of Tamra and no and stuff like that.
Yeah,
nothing really of substance there.
But was there ever any doubt that she was going to be joining for you?
That's a good question. And we had talked about that a few weeks ago of what did we think was going to happen when we were confronted with this situation. And, at this point, no, there was no doubt she had to go. And because again, it's more interesting this way, but I think from a character perspective, it's hard to understand why you would leave that. But at the same time, it's, when you feel like you have been absolutely betrayed, I think, as you put it, you just have to walk away sometimes, and you just have to cut all ties and start something new. And sometimes you take that risk, and it doesn't seem all that bad, right? I mean, Tyranny's painted a pretty rosy picture, even though clearly, they've got some brutality, and she's maybe not seeing some of that. But I think that was important also, that she didn't experience and see Aunt Z and Hype and what happened to them at the same time. Because if she had seen those things, then maybe it would have been a totally different situation, and she might have had a little more conflict with that, even more conflict than she did to make this one.
In fact, at that point we get Yeager making that comment that she made her choice, because Kaz is really struggling with this at this point.
Yeah, Yeager kind of turned his back on her a bit there, and she made her bed. Now she's got to sleep in it.
Yep.
That was I'm not surprised, but it was also a little tough to hear that from him. And I'm sure that's coming out of a place of hurt, but still, it was a bit tough.
Doza frees the Aces at this point as well. He frees them. They've been obviously been locked up. And he basically tells them, "Hey, Aces, we have a station to defend." So they disperse to go jump into their ships. We've got TIE fighters approaching. Kaz is sitting there with, I think he's also with Tora, CB-23, and somebody else. I think it's Yeager, if I'm not mistaken. And they're sitting there, standing in as the
docking bay.
Thank you. The
starts
docking
opening.
bay doors open up. They've got basically TIE fighters floating, hovering right in front of them, about to take them out. And this is where we finally get Aunt Z and Phazon coming in, and they're in a ship that they've apparently on loan from from Maz, and they take out the TIE fighters. This is all great stuff. I mean, this feels very, very Star Wars at this point.
Right.
Because things don't, right when you think things are going to go well, something bad happens, and then things get better, and then something bad happens, or maybe even something worse happens. And so at this point, we get the air battle. The Aces get into their planes. They take off. There's this great shot where they're all kind of coming up, and you can see the Colossus underneath. It was really a cool little moment. This is where we get Synara and the pirates show up. So again, earlier they intercepted that transmission. They're aware of what's going on. And I guess you could make the argument that they've got a bone to pick with the First Order, and that's why they decided to come out here. My guess is Synara is finally, she's going to do whatever she needs to for her friends. They don't really give you a lot of detail on how that conversation went, because last we saw her, she was, back on the ship, and it almost felt like she was about to head home or walk away from this pirate life, right?
Right.
But yeah, it was great to see them back.
This was the hard part. Yeah, this was hard to understand why they came back. But she seems, maybe she's in a position of more power now. Maybe not. It wasn't really clear. I mean, the screen kind of focused a bit on her, although we still clearly saw the leader of the group, still hanging around. But it just came out of nowhere. There was really no buildup as to why they came back. There was no dialogue. There was nothing. They just showed back, and of course, Kaz and company are just helpful for any kind of help that they can get.
Yeah, and
so
I think
they didn't question it.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't either.
But now they're all BFF on the ship. When they decide to pull everybody in, it's like, hey, yeah, join us. Everything's good now.
Well, and I think
jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah, no, and that's fine, because I think I feel the same way. You were at battle with these guys, right? They were the thorn in your side prior to the First Order showing up, and maybe things are a little bit easier now, given what's happened. But I think they'll play into that. I think there's still going to be some distrust among them on the Colossus. Looking ahead to season 2, you've got the pirates now sharing the same space with all this. I think there's some stories there that they could play out with that dynamic and the relationships. There are people harboring, bad feelings for one another still, and all that, trying to get along, kind of thing.
You couldn't leave them behind, right?
Right. Yeah. But it was cool because I think they gave them a purpose too. They weren't just there to show up. I mean, they did show up, but then Synara, I think someone says they tell them to defend the thrusters, because the First Order were targeting the thrusters on the Colossus to try to keep them from escaping. So it was kind of cool. So you think, okay, everything's going real well, and then suddenly what shows up? A freaking Star Destroyer comes out of hyperspace, and I literally said, "Oh no," as probably everyone did when this thing showed up.
Right.
Which is cool. It shows up, it starts blasting the Colossus, and Kaz orders everybody back into the Colossus, because really at this point, there's no way those shields are going to hold up against a Star Destroyer. So the only thing they can do is get out into space so that they can make the jump to hyperspace. And so it's the dogfight's still going on. You've got Yeager being chased by Von Reg, and I guess it looks like he's about to get shot down when suddenly Kaz has this idea of flying through the Colossus in order to kind of blindside Von Reg and take him out and kill him, really, which was kind of weird because it happened so quickly, and I was not expecting Von Reg to die in this episode.
Yeah, this is the one really glaring problem I have with it, was that we had this character that in the very first episode, he was made out to be such a hot shot, and really the cream of the crop, the best pilot or one of the best pilots that the First Order has. And we only saw him really a couple of times, I think, throughout the episodes at most. We did see him on The Core Problem, I believe, but nothing really substantial, at least not what I would consider substantial. And for him to go out like this, and you had asked if he was really dead, and I see just a lot of space dust.
Darth Maul.
Yeah, it was really disappointing. I mean, it really was that this is over for this character, and I don't see any way that they can resurrect this. This isn't Darth Maul or anything, and it was really disappointing. I really did not like this part where they did this, and I question why it was necessary especially given, like you had said, we were not really killing much on these shows. So why was it necessary to kill him rather than, kind of do a Han Solo and Darth Vader thing, and you clip his wing, you clear him off, everybody escapes, and you've still got a character that you can lean on later on. So I'm really curious to hear, maybe this will come up in the Resistance panel as to why they felt it was necessary to off Von Reg.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I have a really good answer other than, maybe it was to cement Kaz's, flying ability. Because really at that point, I think Yeager yells out that comment, man, that kid can fly, kind of thing, right? So
Right.
If nothing else, this just was a way to say that, look, he is actually really, really good at flying, and more than they let us to believe earlier on in the season. But if he was able to kind of, make a maneuver like that and take out somebody as experienced as Von Reg, then that says a lot about Kaz. So I don't know, maybe it was more for Kaz than anything else, but
I'm sure.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It felt like they could have kept him a little bit longer. I wanted to see more of him, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's the case. Although, again, you never say never with Star Wars. No
True.
one's ever truly gone.
Yeah, right. It just feels like we've really wasted a potentially useful character,
Yeah.
Especially now that we're in space. I mean, now it seems appropriate to have him, and now we
Yeah.
don't.
That's true. Yeah. So this
Dave,
episode
what are you
ends
doing?
with Kaz. Everybody gets onto the Colossus. He yells, "Niku, get us out of here!" They make the jump to light speed because he apparently punched in the coordinates to the car, and then we find out that that's actually not the case. In fact, he tells them, "Where are we going?" He says, "I have no idea where we're going." He says, "Either we could be relatively close to the car, or we could be light years away." So, which is kind of cool because I don't know, and I don't think this is a cop out. I'm pretty sure Filoni and team and everybody else, the creators behind this, have an idea where they want to go, 2, 3, 4 seasons out. So I don't think I don't think it'd be fair to. I've seen some criticism saying, "Oh, well, they don't have this planned out," and that kind of thing. I think they do. I am still very interested in where it could go because it opens up a lot of it. The possibilities are endless. I don't think they're going to Dakar. I think that's pretty safe to say. Otherwise,
Right.
we'd see their paths cross with Force Awaken events or just prior to The Last Jedi. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But maybe they head out into space, and I don't want to get into speculation at this point, but maybe they get so far off that this becomes now a location for like the Snap Wexleys and all these people that we know are out doing other missions. Maybe they're taxiing here or dropping in here from time to time because they're so far out there and something else. So anyways, any thoughts there about where they could end up with it, or where they could end up in season 2?
Yeah, I think this reminded me of I can't remember what TV show it was where they wander around aimlessly in space and until the next adventure type of thing.
Lost in Space?
Yeah, maybe.
Voyager?
I don't think. There's probably a ton, but anyway, yeah, there's a lot of ways they can go with this. They could set up their own cell. They could definitely cross paths with Wexley and a number of others. They could definitely play into this with Last Jedi about where are they at, what are they doing, and do they get the message? Do they respond, or do they not respond, or can they not respond? And seeing why that would be, I think that again another alternative view, kind of like we see Kaz's perspective in this one from Starkiller Base on Hosnian, but now we get a different perspective of I got the call, but I can't do anything about it because of reasons ABC.
Yeah.
And maybe the First Order is chasing them in this regard too, and they're finding them. Maybe not tracking them, although that could come into play as well. But so I don't know. I think I'm more in line with it's going to be somewhere off the wall. I don't think they're going to end up in. I don't think we're going to set up new base of operations. But it could start evolving into that as season 2 moves along and they create a new cell and they start to recruit a bit more, depending on how quickly it takes the First Order to come back and find them, which you have to assume is going to happen.
I like that idea. I mean, why couldn't they do season 1 runs parallel or, to The Force Awakens, season 2 parallel to Last Jedi? They could do season 3 in between The Last Jedi and episode 9, and then season 4 runs parallel episode. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's probably a way to kind of fit that in there and still be able to give you that different perspective of things going on in the background and not focused on the main characters like we see. So,
yep, I think so.
Yeah.
So what were your overall impressions of season one?
So season one, I would say, I really have enjoyed the season from the beginning. There were some episodes that were maybe a little bit more sleepier for me than others. Maybe not a lot going on. I always felt like, again, it did feel very landlocked. There wasn't a whole lot there, and that opened up a little bit towards the middle to end of the season. Obviously, I think artistically, I continue to say it. I think they've done a great job with the animation. I look forward to seeing it every time. The voice acting that we're getting from the actors themselves is amazing. I think Christopher Sean has really done a great job with this, because I mean, this is a character that is, just because of in the context of which the character is written and who their target audience really is. It's not me, right? It's easy for an actor to kind of come in and make this come across as being very childish. And I think overall, that's some of the feedback that this show gets holistically, is that it's kind of aimed towards younger kids. But I never feel like Christopher Sean goes too far or makes the character too childish, I guess. It seems appropriate for him. I would really like to say, and I'm going to digress just a little bit here, but I would really like to see them figure out a way to move him as a physical actor into that role and put him somewhere else, either in a TV show or a series, or have him in episode 9 or the next trilogy or whatever, some Star Wars movie. But I would love to actually see Christopher Sean play Kaz as Kaz in a live action something somewhere at some point.
And there's speculation now with, episode 9. Of course, we like to speculate these types of things.
Right.
That, he physically looks enough like Kaz.
Right.
And if episode 9 is a few years removed, then presumably you could have some really pretty close approximation of what you would expect him to look like after a few years. And it look very much like Christopher Sean looks. And I think, and especially if you team him up with Black Squadron or something like that with Snap and company, you could start to see where some of those tie-ins aren't really all that difficult to make.
You wouldn't even have to say his name. I mean, if they just had a shot of him, right?
That would be kind of cool. I would be on board with that.
And let us just run with it. That would be awesome.
There you go.
But yeah,
that's how we Star Wars, folks.
But Scott Lawrence, I think, so all of the actors, I think voice acting has been great. And I would say I'm pretty excited about where this is going to go in season 2. So say what you will about season 1 and what you liked, what you didn't like, that kind of thing. But I think given where we are with season 2 and the fact that you've got this Colossus, you've got all these different characters, whether the people of the Colossus or the Resistance, I should say, and then you've got the pirates. You have no idea where they're going. There's just a vast opportunity here in terms of where the show can go at this point. So that in itself, I think, is pretty exciting. So I'm pretty excited and looking forward to seeing where this goes in season 2.
Yeah, and we had spoken about this a couple of times. First seasons of TV shows is always really difficult to get a great assessment of where it's at. There are some shows that are the exception that are just very good all the way throughout. And I'm not saying this wasn't very good, but there are some shows that take a while to get their footing and to really understand what's the story arc going to take and how are we going to get there, and at what point are we going to start to see this shift and the momentum start to pick up. And for this show, it really happened over these last really kind of 8-ish episodes, right? So the last third of the season, if you will, it really started to mature a bit into what we would have, I think, more likely expected. The things I've really enjoyed, and I've not really been critical of Christopher Sean's ability in this character. I think it's been more of how they've written the character of Kaz in general. But I really have to echo your thoughts and what you've said. Scott Lawrence and Christopher Sean have done really a fantastic job. I really like Josh Brenner's Niku. I think he was a lot of fun. I think the voice cast all the way around, even Donald Faison. I know some people are kind of not excited about hype Faison and he's a little over the top and things like that, but I really liked the difference in the characters. I like some of the range that we're getting from these different characters, and you actually get these emotions. So it's a bit more rooted in what our reality is, but within Star Wars. And I think that's been really good to see evolve over time. And we're starting to see some of the characters, even like Torah and Tam and even Captain Doza, start to get a little more screen time, and we start to get a little bit more about them. And we've set them up better for season 2. I think a couple of the things that have stood out to me over the season 1, the sound design on the show is really phenomenal. The subtleties you get when you're in, you're out. It was in one of these episodes. I had noticed it that we got again more ambient type of sounds, but even we get TIE fighters and thing in these scenes where you're inside, but you're close to an outdoor and you can still hear the TIE fighters outside. And you get a really great sound design in these engineering rooms. All the little clicks and the beeps and everything else within it, just the ambient noise is really fantastic. And one of the things I noticed in these episodes that I haven't paid as much attention to in some of the past ones was the music. And I thought the music actually really it felt very, very Star Warsy. Maybe not the theme music so much of what we see on the title card, but throughout the episode, it was very much like Star Wars. It felt very much like we were used to seeing and listening to in Rebels and in Clone Wars. And I thought that's a huge compliment, I believe, and at least in my book, to where the music is really feeling like Star Wars and really helps the story along. It's not intrusive at all. And some people might say, well, if I don't hear it, I don't recognize it, therefore it's not anything memorable. But I think if it feeds the story and it gives that emotional weight to it, it's still there, even if it's not as tangible. In some regards, it's difficult to have everything as epic as what John Williams does, especially in television. But this was really, really well done, and the sound design and the music in particular. And again, I started to really enjoy the show, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why. But I'm excited to see season 2. I don't know if it's a must-watch TV type of thing, but it's not painful to watch, and it's actually pretty enjoyable. And I think if people give it a shot and they get through some of the character building type of episodes, and you get to these, I think you start to enjoy them a little bit more. And even if you're not really sure why, I think it's enjoyable content. I love the animation, and especially with the ships, the animation is really, really great. And I'm glad we have. We have animation, but B, we have this kind of animation because I just think it's something different than what we've had. And it's something I've always wanted to see on screen for a really, really long time.
I think sorry if I could add one last thing. The only thing that I felt like was lacking that I wanted more of from this season was the aces. I didn't feel like I got to see them as much. And like my boy Griff Halloran, the guy that's flying around in the Imperial shuttle or the old galactic Empire type vehicle. He's like, he always gets blown out of space. Like his one episode, his wing got shot. This episode, his wing got shot. He never really gets to see. But I don't think we got to see them showcased any more than just really good pilots in the races, which was fine. But I was really hoping that at some point, and maybe we'll get that obviously in season 2. But that would be my only critique.
Yeah, it wasn't what they sold us in the teasers leading up into the show, right?
Yeah, no, I would agree.
No, I agree with you there. I think that's a good point. So we didn't get to see as much of that.
But that's a minor thing in all things considered, right? In the full context of the season, I say it's pretty minor.
Well, sir, since we're talking about Griff, that's Steve Stanton, right?
Yep.
He had a tweet. He said, we're going to give you something to talk about at Celebration in the last episode. So let me ask you, did this deliver on that statement?
I think it did. I guess it's from a certain point of view. Yes.
What do you think he was referencing? Maybe let's start there.
I really think it's just about the Colossus having a hyperdrive on it, because that seems to be everywhere. You talk about all the interviews that all the creators have done. Some of the stuff that we've seen on social media, that was the big surprise at the very end, and I think that's what he was alluding to. Maybe the potential there, the fact that this Colossus base is mobile now and that it's going somewhere and we don't know where it's going to go to. I think that's enough to keep us talking. It certainly has me thinking about a lot of different scenarios and how that could play out. But are you thinking there's something more there?
Well, I think some of it may have been Tam with her going.
Sure.
I kind of wonder if maybe Von Reg dying is part of it too.
Yeah, right.
I'm really salty about that. Yeah. Yeah, the saltiness is coming through. But I don't think it quite delivered on the potential hype that he was trying to build for it, only because he really made it seem like we were going to see something that was just going to really push us back in our seats and have us questioning and having, I get the ambiguity of where they're going now, and those are interesting and those are great for speculatory type of conversations.
Right.
But as far as we had this one pivotal moment and now we're on the edge of our seats because it was a cliffhanger type of thing, or what did this mean or what did that mean? don't really have a lot of those types of questions, except maybe a little bit for Tam as to where is she going now and how will she get worked back into the story and what will she look like when she comes back into the story. And that's actually one of the more interesting things I think I'm waiting for. But I think the hype tweet fell a little short for me. It fell very short for me. But I think between that and seeing Starkiller Base, there were moments to talk about, make no mistake, but maybe not quite at the level that maybe he was teasing.
Yeah, he may have oversold it a little bit. I would agree.
Maybe, but we don't have the context of what he was talking about directly either.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I think we'll end here. Sorry, this one went a little bit over just because we had a ton of news up front, and we definitely wanted to spend some quality time in talking about the last 4 episodes of a season finale for a Star Wars animation show. So a couple shout outs here. We've got some new Patreon members. Stephanie and Didactic Jam are both new Patreon members. So thank you guys both very much for donating there. And then we've got new Discord members. We've got one new Discord member, Blake710, who's actually the husband of Stephanie. But then we've got some returning Discord members as well. Like we had Doctor Who's back. Didactic Jam, I should say, is back as well. I don't know if it's he or she, but they were on not that long ago, disappeared, came back. So we're glad they're back. And then we saw Katie, Duchess of Mandalore herself is back on. That's right. Discord. Yeah. So
our resident conspiracy theorist.
Yep.
So it's great to have some old faces coming back in, and man, Discord is hopping these days. Lots of activity. So encourage everyone to come out. earglumedia.com/Discord, DISCORD.
And speaking of Earglue Media, we've got a new show that just launched. Yeah.
Yeah. Exciting new show. Josh and Joe. So some may recognize Joe from Bad Gamers Anonymous, and Josh is one of our admins on the site. And
he's on the basement.
He's been on the basement. That's right. And so he started his own podcast called The Film Appraisers. And this is a show that is very reminiscent, if you're familiar with the Antiques Roadshow, where people come up and they say, hey, I've got this, vase. How much is it worth type of thing? And you get this family history. Well, they're kind of putting a little extra spin on that. And they they have a guest bring a movie on, and they talk about it, and they kind of look at it the lens of a more critical type of lens, including, how does it hold up today? And our dear friend, Mr. Michael Rondo, dear friend is a little bit light, but Mike was on the show recently talking about Clerks. And so I think that was a great first episode for them, and looking forward. And they gave him a nice little evaluation at the end of the story, or at the show, which I think is a nice touch too. So it's a really fun, entertaining show. Encourage everyone to go check it out. You can find it on earglumedia.com, and of course I think it's on iTunes right now, and they're working on getting it on some of your other favorite podcatchers.
Yeah. And just a spoiler alert, there's a couple of us will be on there as well. So some of the familiar voices that you've heard, I'm on a show. I think you're coming on. Crowley's been on as well. So get ready. You'll get to hear what movies we brought, and see how much money we made, or how much our movies appraised at, which I was pretty happy with mine. I'm not going to spoil anything now, but yeah, I was pretty happy with mine. So,
one of the cool things is they're actually going to track it, I believe. I think I have an action item I wasn't told about to get something on the website to help them out with this. But yeah, they're going to actually track it. I think they've taken the top 20 or something. They came up with a premiere type of list.
I think it was like AFI's list or something they were using.
Yeah, AFI's. And so then they're going to see how our shows stack up, and with valuation, they've kind of retroactively evaluated those. And so I think that's a nice touch. You can kind of see where you rank with the legendary movies of all time.
Cool. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you brought to the table, because it's always something interesting.
Well, yeah. And I'll tell you that my first choice was shot down. They were like, no, we're not doing that. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll pick a better movie. And I did. Don't worry. It's a great one. And I mean that in all sincerity. So
check it out. We're super excited about that.
Absolutely. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back with episode 272. We are going to do The Phantom Menace 20 years later. So it's a retrospective look on that movie, and, what it meant to us then, what it means to us now, and what could it possibly hold for the future of Star Wars. So with that, Blowfish 1, anything else before we go?
Let's get out of here, Blowfish 2. Light up the hyperdrive.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.